After putting in 35 long years in the trenches of state AG regs, handing out citations for dodgy crop yields and soil scams that could make your head spin, all I was after was a peaceful spot in Riverbend Hollow, where the soil rewarded your sweat and neighbors didn't poke into your affairs. I scooped up this neglected acreage on the outskirts of the Crestwood Estates HOA, not squarely in their territory, but close enough to exchange hellos with folks on their rambles, and spent those initial 3 years breathing life into 48 resilient pear trees, limbs sagging with golden orbs that burst like sweet summer memories on your palate. My curbside setup. Nothing more than a shaky board with a handwritten card. Toss in what you feel, scoop up what sustains. No grand enterprise. Merely a humble exchange born from the void left by Ellen's passing after that prolonged fight with illness. The orchard evolving into my quiet healer, fingers caked in clay like a balm for old wounds, with school youngsters sketching blooms and buzzers beneath the canopy. Locals bartering preserves and jotted gratitudes, kids wide-eyed at the buzz of bees, that unhurried cadence feeling like the just desserts for a career of balanced judgments. Old Miss Beatrice from down the lane swapping her famed berry tarts for a basket of my ripest. Her stories of grandkids filling the air like pollen, or young Dad Tom stopping by with his boy to pick pears and chat about baseball. Those moments stitching back the tears in my heart. But then she descends like an untimely frost. Marlene Whitaker, with her impeccably highlighted mane, rigid postures, and an air of perpetual judgment, claiming the upscale split level up the slope, and locking her sights on my foliage during her brisk dawn circuits with that feisty little spaniel, her grimace intensifying by the day, as though my modest bounty was a calculated insult to her blueprint of flawless suburban order, her impulses rooted in that archetypal need to micromanage, perhaps veiling a personal upheaval, a bitter divorce, distant children, grasping at HOA decrees like lifelines in her turbulent inner world of unmet expectations and fading relevance. Her walks past my gate not just routine but reconnaissance, building her case against what she saw as chaos encroaching on her controlled bubble. It unfolded piecemeal at first, those irksome dispatches worming into my mailbox from the Crestwood HOA Enforcement Brigade, all ostentatious gold script prattling on about aesthetic misalignment and how my arrangement disrupted their buffed-up image, me chuckling ruefully and consigning them to the compost heap, secure in the knowledge that my parcel's time-honored farm waiver stood unassailable like ancient oaks, provisions I'd co-authored for fairness's sake. But Marlene wasn't the sort to back off. She fed on that adrenaline of shaping others to her schema, maybe to patch the fissures where her own existence unraveled at the seams, her letters a symptom of that deeper compulsion to impose uniformity, fearing any outlier like my freewheeling grove might unravel the fragile tapestry she'd woven for herself. As April's thaw set in, the missives grew thornier, admonishing against forbidden merchandising proximate to communal confines, that barb at my giveaway spirit touching a raw spot, for it wasn't about coin, it was communion, the sort Ellen and I had cherished in our gentler moments, now imperiled by her fabricated indignation, stirring memories of her laughter under similar trees on our honeymoon picnic, that pang making me pause longer over my morning coffee. Then she advances one brisk aurora, limbs fortified like battlements, halting just beyond my barrier, inflections slicing the crispness. That junky booth must depart. It's plummeting our appraisals, morphing this into a ramshackle bazaar, me dusting earth from my digits. Brim shading my gaze, countering composed. Greetings, madam. This terrain's ag-designated since '62, no wholesale dealings, merely proffering pears to passers-by. Her apertures constricting to fissures. Standards prevail here for kinships for safeguard. If agrarian's your pursuit, relocate to authentic pastures. Her quip laced with that condescending venom. Yet I discerned the substratum. Her compulsion to command from an abyss of apprehension, as if my unfettered arbor derided her constricted cosmos, me inclining my brim courteous, revolving to my containers. Her tarrying irked that I refrained from trepidation or supplication, ultimately pivoting and departing in exasperation, leaving me with a quiet resolve to hold my ground, not out of spite, but to honor the simple joys Ellen had taught me to savor. The squeeze tightened bit by bit, like tendrils wrapping a post. Pamphlets shoved beneath my portal, scarlet bold bellowing, equities plummeting from furtive vending, and interlopers loitering, juvenile security wherefore. Marlene's imprint evident in the standardized font, her objective demasking, incite alarm to muster her cadre, sequestering me to solidify her dominion, that stratagem germinating from whatsoever vacancy rendered her perceived divergences as menaces, her tactics echoing the overreaches I'd battled in my career, but now personal, hitting home. Pals I'd bantered with commenced evading regards like venerable Ms. Beatrice, who'd bartered her current confection for my pears, now hastening by devoid of salutation, the ecclesiastical excursion ensemble nullifying their locale amid my foliage sans elucidation, that pang of seclusion excavating profoundly, gnawing at the refuge I'd erected to commemorate Ellen's bequest, her utterance resounding, "Profound radicals endure gales, Joe, impede not briars from ensnaring 'em," those lonely evenings finding me on the porch with Scout the faithful mud at my feet, staring at the stars, wondering if peace was ever truly claimable. Subsequently, the eavesdroppers materialized, diminutive optics fastened to their pathway balustrade, oriented at my alignments, another upon a thoroughfare illuminator scrutinizing my ingress, HOA labeling it faunal surveillance upon inquiry, yet dispatching a reprimand when I severed one, me chronicling entirety, captures, chronologies, even confabulating with erstwhile associate Lena in ordinances, who exhumed Marlene's sequence of nameless grievances on my effluent perils, portraying me as verdant peril, her intensification from that intrinsic disquietude, transmuting vicinage vigilance into a cudgel for aberrants akin to me, her web drawing in side players like hesitant board member Kyle, a young accountant type who'd once bought pears for his wife's pie, now caught in her net of duty calls. But this marks the juncture where I embed steadfast and retort mild, albeit resolute, sans detonations, merely the incessant abrasion of actuality like fostering a dilatory sapling. Perused my repositories, demarcation cartography pristine as composition Eve, substantiating each iota mine, extraneous to their purview, the verge they'd felled for their avenues ironically unveiling my enclave to their espionage. That irony bringing a wry smile as I sipped tea with Lena over the phone, her advice bolstering my plan. Remitted rejoinders desiccated as memoranda, invoking stipulations Marlene couldn't contort, eschewing her toxin, my equanimity sustained from epochs dispensing impartial verdicts. Cognizant ire would bestow her the advantage, instead channeling it into quiet outreach, like inviting Ms. Beatrice for a pear-picking afternoon. Her thawing over shared stories of lost loves, rebuilding bridges one conversation at a time. Whilst she intensifies with those anxious denizen proclamations, I inaugurate subdued domicile summons, disseminating permit replicas, discoursing across barriers on how the kiosk's sheer communal bequest, not mercantile. Corroding her fable, archetypes like nascent Pater Tom, acquiescing contemplative, overlooked the panorama, apologies for ingesting the lure, that leisurely thaw from her terror-propelled schism, even Kyle slipping me a note at the market, "Not all of us buy her line, hang in," his quiet dissent adding layers to the neighborhood's undercurrents. Strain pinnacles, one saffron October aurora, me amassing receptacles for the third former's jaunt, conveyance rumbling nigh with effervescent prattle, when twain sentinels screech posterior, beacons gyrating vehement as hornets, Marlene lurking perimeter adjacent, apparatus ensconced, sneer expansive as a vulpine's, persuaded her adolescence in clandestine maneuvers cue had ensnared me. Guardians nearing circumspect. "Bulletin on unlicensed juvenile enterprise, sir. Dialogue?" Me surveying the conveyance panes thronged with avid visages, the pending pear pouches, my quintessence's toil immersed in that austere blaze, rebutting steadfast. Delighted, but query my designation initially. Might rectify. Their transceivers crackling, visages transitioning from firm to abashed as oversight relays my credentials. Prior Superintendent Langley, confusion, regrets. Marlene's exultation disintegrating to ire, her stratagem recoiling from immoderation, that frenzied endeavor to humiliate disclosing her frivolity conversely, the kids tumbling off the bus oblivious, their laughter a balm as Marlene storms off defeated. Murmur detonates post a viral excerpt of the confrontation inundating streams, individuals congregating my kiosk with ensigns and anecdotes, HOA assemblies erupting tumultuous as participants interrogate Marlene. This isn't guardianship, it's despotism. Her realm fracturing beneath her conceit's burden, ballots expelling her amidst divulged epistles of her intrigues versus others, a domicile confectioner, avian enthusiast veterans, her clasp dissolving, litigation faltering when her calumny assertions dredge additional filth, prohibiting her from counsel's shire extensive, her absconding to a remote domicile, appendage trailed. We reconstruct delicately, baptizing the copse, pair refuge commons with perches and meanders, aides like Tom and Beatrice contributing, Yuletide lantern processions illumining the corridors with mirth, that filmic denouement beneath stellar arbors, me and Scout, the venerable canine observing affiliations mend, serenity nestling profound as rhizomes, The cops efflorescing not exclusively yield but absolution. Ms. Beatrice baking her tarts again for a communal feast under the stars. Tom bringing his boy to hang a lantern on the old pear tree, their smiles weaving back the fabric Marlene had torn. Nevertheless, here's the umbra that persists, inciting contemplation. Was Marlene a solitary tempest? Or do these HOA architectures cultivate her genus, engendering autocrats from mundane individuals pursuing compliance amid pandemonium? Ponders if authentic fellowship flourishes on mandates or on permitting individuals merely subsist, leaving you to question if such systems heal or harm the very communities they claim to protect. If this chronicle agitated you, perhaps your own HOA tribulation or courtyard chronicle, articulate in annotations. Equity triumphed, or configurations still engender intimidators. Disclose your chronicles. Endorse if tacit fortitude motivates. Enlist for additional poignant narratives. And what's your perspective? Balanced perimeters or nefarious surplus in the environs?